I remember that night like it happened yesterday. The hum of the turbines winding down, the smell of jet fuel mixing with rain, the kind of silence that only exists after everyone's gone home. It was close to midnight at Denver International, and I was the last one out, last flight, last log entry, last heartbeat in the hangar. I'd flown for 12 hours straight. My body ached, my uniform clung to me, and all I could think about was getting to my apartment, collapsing on the couch and forgetting the world for a while. But fate, it has a strange way of finding you when you think you've earned rest. I was halfway across the tarmac when I saw it, a shadow near the edge of the runway, small, trembling, out of place. At first, I thought it was a piece of luggage or debris. Then it moved. A dog. She was soaked, shivering, fur plastered against her ribs. A golden retriever, I think. Though her coat was so matted with rain and oil, it was hard to tell. She limped toward me, cautious but desperate, her eyes wide and human in a way that stopped me cold. "Hey there," I called softly, crouching down. "What are you doing out here, girl?" She hesitated, one step, then two, before finally pressing herself against my knee. I felt the tremor run through her. She'd been alone for a while. When I reached for her collar, I noticed the tag was half broken, hanging by a rusted ring. I turned it over. It said, Captain Elijah Brooks. My name. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I just stared at it. Rain dripping from my cap, the world spinning quietly around me. It wasn't possible. I'd never owned a dog, not recently, not in years. But there it was, my name, engraved into metal worn thin by time. I rubbed the tag, squinting through the rain, looking for an explanation. On the back there was another line, faintly scratched out but still visible. "If lost, return to," followed by an address. My old address, the one I'd shared with Naomi, my wife, the one I lost 3 years ago. I felt the world tilt. The storm pressed closer, lightning flickering across the empty runway. It couldn't be. I looked down at the dog again, those amber eyes, deep and knowing, staring right through me. And in that moment, I remembered. Naomi had always talked about getting a retriever, said they were loyal, gentle, the kind of souls that didn't know how to give up on you. I'd brushed it off back then. Too much travel, too many excuses. But I remembered her laughter, how she'd pull up pictures on her phone and say, "One day, Eli, one day we'll come home to something that loves us back." But we never got that one day. The accident took her before I could make it right. I gathered the dog in my arms. She didn't resist, just pressed her head against my chest, letting out a soft whine that sounded almost human. I took her into the hangar, wrapped her in my flight jacket, and checked the tag again, as if it might change. But it didn't. My name, my address, my past, somehow alive again. I called the tower. No one had reported a missing dog. Security hadn't seen anything. No microchip data came up when the vet's scanner beeped over her neck. It was as if she'd appeared from nowhere, or maybe from a place I'd buried too deep to recognize. I named her Sky, because that's where I'd found her, and maybe where she'd found me. Over the next few days, Sky stayed close. Too close. She followed me from room to room, head resting against my knee whenever I sat. She'd whimper when I picked up my flight bag, and the sound would cut through me like a blade. She was gentle, but she carried a sadness I recognized, the same kind I'd carried since Naomi's accident. One night, as I sat on the couch reviewing my next flight schedule, I noticed Sky pawing at the closet door. She kept scratching softly, tail down, whining low. When I opened it, I froze. Inside was a box I hadn't touched in years, Naomi's things. Her journals, her uniform from the airfield, the small collar she'd bought for the dog we'll get someday. I sank to my knees. The collar was the same design, same color, same pattern as the one Sky was wearing now. Only this one was brand new, still in its package. I turned to her. "Where did you come from, girl?" She just looked back at me, eyes shining under the soft yellow light. The next morning, I decided to drive to my old neighborhood, the address still engraved on the back of her tag. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she'd belonged to someone else. When I arrived, the house was empty. Windows boarded up, the lawn wild with weeds. But there was something new by the porch, A small memorial. Flowers, faded photos, a weathered cross with Naomi's name etched into it. My throat tightened. I knelt, tracing the letters with my fingers. Someone had cared enough to tend it, even after all this time. Then I noticed a piece of paper tucked under a stone. The ink had bled from rain, but I could still make out the words. For the pilot who never stopped flying, she wanted you to find her someday. I looked back at the car. Skye sat in the passenger seat, watching me. And suddenly, I understood. Naomi's sister, Tessa, must have found Skye, maybe even trained her, maybe given her the tag. A bridge between what was lost and what was waiting to be healed. I sat there on the wet ground, tears mixing with rain, and whispered, "Thank you, Naomi." Skye let out a soft bark, as if she'd heard her name. From that day on, Skye became my co-pilot. She'd ride beside me on long drives to the airbase, her head out the window, ears flapping in the wind. At night, she'd curl up by my feet, guarding me from the silence that used to echo through the house. But the strangest thing happened 3 weeks later, during a flight to Seattle. The weather was rough that night. Turbulence, heavy rain, low visibility. I was tense, hands gripping the controls too tight, heart racing faster than the instruments. Then, through the radio static, I swore I heard it. Naomi's voice, soft, familiar. "Elijah," it said, "you're not alone up there." I blinked hard, trying to focus. But when I looked out the cockpit window, lightning flashed. And for a split second, I saw her reflection in the glass, smiling. When I landed safely, I sat there in the cockpit, shaking, crying, the kind of cry that comes from somewhere older than grief itself. And when I came home that night, Skye was waiting by the door, tail wagging slow and steady, as if she already knew. I knelt, wrapping my arms around her. "Guess you really were sent to bring me home, huh?" She licked my face once, then curled against my chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without dreams. Weeks turned into months, and Skye became the quiet rhythm that kept my life steady. Every morning before sunrise, we'd drive out to the airfield. She'd sit by the fence while I prepped the plane, tail wagging with a kind of patience that felt almost sacred. The other pilots started calling her Captain's co-pilot. "Man, that dog's loyal," my friend Jake said once, tossing her a treat. "You'd think she was trained for the Air Force or something." "She's trained for my heart," I said, half joking, but deep down I meant every word. Skye didn't just fill the silence, she softened it. The house no longer echoed. The air no longer carried the scent of loneliness. It smelled like life again, of fur, rain, and forgiveness. But sometimes late at night, I'd catch her staring at the door, waiting, listening, and I'd wonder if she still belonged to someone else, someone who'd loved her before she found me. One stormy evening, about 4 months later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Is this Captain Elijah Brooks?" the voice asked. "Yes. This is Officer Daniels from the Animal Registry in Colorado Springs. You brought in a retriever a while back, correct? Golden female, name unknown." My stomach dropped. "Yes, that's right." "Well," he said, "we just ran an extended scan." Her microchip finally registered. Old tech, damaged, took time to decode. "We found a record. The dog's name is Hope. She belonged to a woman named Naomi Brooks." For a long second, the world went silent. All I could hear was the rain against the window. "I'm sorry," the officer continued softly. "It seems your wife registered her years ago." "The address matches your old home," I managed to whisper. "You're sure?" "Yes, sir. We'll update the system, but it looks like she was yours all along." I hung up the phone and just sat there shaking. I looked over at Skye, Hope, lying on the rug, her head resting on her paws, watching me with those same deep eyes. "She was yours," I whispered. "You were ours." And just like that, everything clicked. Naomi must have gotten her in secret. Maybe she wanted to surprise me. Maybe she wanted me to come home and find her waiting, both of them. But she never got the chance. The accident happened before I ever knew. Hope had somehow survived, wandered, been taken in, lost, found, and finally, after all those years, found her way back to me. Not by luck, not by chance, by love that refused to die. That night, I took Hope out to the old airfield, the same runway where I'd first found her. The moon hung low, painting the tarmac in silver light. She ran freely, ears flapping, tail high, every step a memory made real. I watched her silhouette disappear into the mist and come bounding back, barking like she was laughing at the sky. I knelt down as she reached me, wrapping my arms around her neck. "You brought her back, didn't you?" I whispered. The wind blew softly, like the sky was breathing. I looked up at the stars and thought about Naomi, about how she'd always believed love could travel farther than any plane I'd ever flown. Maybe she was right. After that night, I started flying differently. I stopped chasing distance and started flying with purpose. I began volunteering for rescue missions, ferrying supplies and lost pets after storms, helping families reunite. Each trip felt like redemption, like a conversation with the universe that finally made sense. And hope, my hope one was always there, tail wagging, eyes bright, ready to board like she'd been born for the cockpit. There was one rescue I'll never forget. A small boy had lost his dog in a hurricane down south. When we landed and he saw her running off the ramp, he fell to his knees crying, shouting her name. Hope watched them, then looked up at me, as if to say, "See, we keep flying until love finds home." I smiled, wiping my eyes. "Yeah, girl. That's the mission." Years later, when Hope grew older and her muzzle turned gray, she still insisted on sitting by the hangar every morning, watching the planes lift into the clouds. One day, I came home and found her lying by the window, sunlight across her fur, perfectly still. There was no sound, just peace, the kind that doesn't ask for tears. I buried her near the runway, where the sky meets the earth, where I'd first seen her. On her collar tag, I had new words engraved: Hope, the one who flew home. It's been 5 years now. I still fly, still chase the horizon. But every time I see a dog watching from a fence line, or a cloud shaped like wings, I feel her near, reminding me that love, once found, never really leaves. Some nights, when the moon is low and the air is quiet, I swear I can hear Naomi's voice again. Calm, steady, proud. "You did good, Elijah. You brought her home." And I whisper back, "We all came home, baby, came home."